just clicked something. Are you guys getting anything?
I'm not. I'm going to try to start mine again here.
So I'm Todd. I clicked on this. I think this is coming in from the YouTube link in your email, not through Excel events.
Yeah, I got in now.
You're in?
Yeah. Are you guys in? Oh, let me get my. Let's get rid of the headphones so I can hear. Okay.
Oh, maybe I am in.
Yeah, I got to see even. So this should be Auburn.
Okay. Yep, I'm in.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and, if you guys are in, I'm going to go ahead and hang up the phone. Is that all right?
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right.
Hey.
That looks like a couple Auburn people, I'm hoping.
Yes, sir.
You
Right.
guys can hear us all right? Good. Did you guys have trouble getting in? Good.
No trouble.
You did better than we did then.
Good for you
Okay.
guys.
And we got Chris, so Chris, Steve, and I'm Todd, are your judges. We've been reviewing and watching videos and audio. So we're going to jump right in because I think we're short on time. We got a couple questions for you. And we'll leave it up to you as far as how you answer, who answers. But so first question, the overall design of your rocket contains multiple complex electronic systems. How did the team determine that all the electronic systems would successfully function simultaneously and were mutually compatible under actual flight conditions, such as EMI and EMC system testing?
I'll take over for testing because our testing lead isn't here. We do a lot of electronics testing and like rigorously make sure all the systems work and are compatible with each other. We do battery testing to make sure the batteries will last on the launch stand, and tons of systems testing. I know the payload drone gets flown like every week, and we just make sure everything works. Did that answer your question?
So let me,
Steve,
Todd, if
go ahead.
I can jump in. So that was one of the things I was noticing though. Your rocket has complex electronic systems in it, and to what extent did you turn things on, fire them up in their, in the proximity of themselves, and make sure that they were all functioning? And I was specifically interested in like the transmitters and your GPS receivers. Was there any desensitizing of a receiver, or was a transmitter potentially interfering with some other electronics that was on board? So it was kind of the compatibility testing once everything was put in the airframe.
Yeah, we put everything together and everything works and nothing interferes with each other. We do have a lot of RF transmitters, but we collaborate with all the other team leads and make sure that we're not interfering with other systems.
Okay, Steve, you good with that? Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next one then. This in your report, you talked about your braking system, EBS system, being deployed at about 10 feet, and Frank, I think it's Frank, all the cute names, I like the names, Frank and Falls and everything. Frank at about 5 feet, and as far as I could tell, they were with respect to your launch altitude. So you're going to deploy Frank 5 feet above launch altitude. My question is, how does that account for variations in terrain?
I'll take at least in regards to the Frank question. I don't know if you had a kind of follow on with the EBS system. We will be, we'll have a pilot in command of the Falls and Frank system before Frank deployment. So the 5 feet wasn't necessarily a strict altitude requirement or limit, or rather just more of an approximation to give the reader a general idea of the altitude at which we would be deploying Frank. The size of these two vehicles, if you will, Falls and Frank, aren't that large And we also didn't want to introduce some serious instability with like any pendulum dynamics, if you will, between you have the we'll use this as falls and then Frank. We didn't want to cause any sway or anything like that. So we're trying to keep the length to a minimum while also giving falls a little bit of or give falls some room to fly around, or just enough distance from the separation of Frank to maintain controllability when it needs to fly away. Does that answer your question?
So just to clarify, you said that you're going to have a pilot. So is that going to be, you're going to remotely try to estimate when you're about 5 feet off the ground? Is that what I heard?
Yes, that'll be
sir.
up to the pilot.
Yes.
The pilot being a person or an autopilot on board?
Pilot being a person.
So if you lost your video link, you're in trouble? I mean, you're doing it through a link, is that right?
Yes, that is true. However, we're not going to command release from using the Mars system that would release the payload from the rest of the well, sorry, I got that mixed up. We're not going to command falls to fly on its own. So we won't cut the fall chute. Falls has its own independent chute when released from the main rocket body. And we're not going to command that release unless we have full control. Unless we get status that the arms are deployed and that we have video feed. So as far as a safety concern or controllability concern, we took steps to mitigate that possibility. Now we could certainly during flight lose control or video feed, but the general idea is that we're not going to put ourselves in that situation by not deploying if we don't have the capability to control, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't as much as safety concern. My thought was if you were doing taking an altitude reading at launch and then on the way down using that altitude and just doing a delta 5 feet, but there happened to be a 6 foot high rock right below you, you just crashed into that rock. That was kind of what led me to the question, but I think I'll go on. I think that's enough of an answer, unless Steve or Chris, any follow up, or should we just go to the next one? All right. Sorry, I apologize for the lightning speed, but it is 15 minutes isn't fair to you or us. So we'll go with, so next question is, if I told you your mission flew, but it failed, what would you expect to be the most likely cause? And based on that, what have you done to address the most likely failure mode?
So I'll take over this question. We have a couple systems that will not deploy if the software doesn't get a good read. The EBS system won't deploy if the rocket is tilting more than a certain amount of degrees. And then as Justin was saying, if the payload doesn't have a good read of where it is with the camera feed and with the altitude, it also won't deploy. The most possible, the easiest thing that could fail in the rocket would be the payload. But again, we've taken steps to mitigate that. And if it does fail, it'll just come down under parachute. But I think Preet can go into EVS a little more.
Okay. So your mitigation is that you could basically override and not deploy?
It'll do it itself. If the rocket for some reason starts angling itself, the EBS won't do anything. It'll just it'll stay shut down, and the payload will come down as in the parachute without deploying.
Okay. Fair answer. Everybody good with that? We'll go on.
Was there, did Ignacio?
Yeah, with the EBS, we have onboard sensors that the gyroscopic sensors that say what the roll pitch and what the profile of the rocket is. So if it's outside the safety boundaries, which is about 10 degrees from the vertical right now, it is not going to deploy. And it's going to disarm itself, so it would minimize damage to the EBS and to the rocket, so it does not get into active control, and we end up designing designing a controlled missile instead of a free propelled rocket.
Okay, we got a few more minutes here. This is a unique question to this year, we think. So COVID provided many unique challenges to your competition. Can you describe unexpected opportunities and unexpected challenges that COVID presented to your teams, and how you benefited or were hurt in some way by those? Or is it too painful to even talk about?
I'll give that one to our outreach lead, Lucy. That's where most of our stuff was impacted, was most of our K through 12 outreach, because we obviously can't travel to the schools and show them building model rockets and stuff. Lucy, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so obviously it limited our ability to come in the lab and work together, which, you know, impacts the team a lot, but we were really good about organization and just having, you know, safe distances, masks, doing all of that. But in terms of opportunities, it really granted us the opportunity to do more outreach than we actually thought we would be able to do, because we filmed some events. Like normally we do live events with K through 12. Normally we go and we build rockets with them and we blast them off, but we were actually able to do Zoom meetings and do pre-recorded outreach events for in the classroom. And I think a lot of teachers really appreciated that, because we were able to gain attention and hold little kids' attention during Zoom calls, which is really hard to do. And so we just brought a lot of energy and passion to it that they really appreciated it. And we got a lot of thank you notes from that, because, you know, this year has been really hard for everybody, but especially educators having to teach over Zoom. And so I think that was a really great opportunity. Even if it's outside of our technical mission, it's still a big part of our purpose as a club.
Okay, very good. I think we talked fast enough. That was and we didn't think we had enough time for too many questions. So I think that's pretty much our questions we have. Otherwise, they enjoyed going through all your presentations.
Yeah, that was a good, appreciate the responses here today, and appreciated looking over your technical report and your presentations as well. So
thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. And so I think if all works right, I think you guys would log off and we'll have to pick up another one. Starts in a minute or two. So again, thanks. I apologize for the short session. Like I said, we could have spent hours out in the field, but that'll be next year. So thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
You too.
All right, so we'll stay logged in here.